You can hire somebody who does AI internally for your agency. They're doing their job, and
Yeah.
they're going to go home, and they're not going to think about your agency once they go home. An owner, for better and worse, we don't stop thinking about it.
Welcome to Agency in Motion, where we go behind the scenes of building, acquiring, and scaling modern agencies. Hosted by Tristan Pelligrino, this show is for agency founders, operators, and investors who want to grow smarter, structure better deals, and create lasting enterprise value. Let's get into it.
William, I know you're running Knowmad, which
Yep.
is an agency that has a certain focus on a vertical, and you've been doing that for a while. But yeah, give me the bird's eye view there. Yeah.
Sure. So the name of the agency, Knowmad, spelled Knowmad, was actually given to me when I needed to file taxes when I was doing Schedule C solopreneur work, living out in Colorado, um, which is where I landed after I graduated college and decided to go west, as they say. That name came about from a online chat conversation in a community network, and that was in the mid 90s. I was helping to roll that out and do training around town. I built my first website, 2 pages, for a real estate agent in Telluride, Colorado. Goes back quite a ways. I'm more of a technical marketer, actually, and you can kind of see that in my own entrepreneurial journey. It's been interesting to watch the web grow up and become more sophisticated, and how society is adopted around it, and we can't imagine working without it. With AI now coming on the scenes and having more and more of our experiences are going to be intermediated by AI, how that's going to change how we use and build these websites and the platforms like that we're using. But yeah, I've been doing Knowmad. I started out as a solopreneur, started having some folks come over to the house. By the time I had 3 people showing up at the house at 8 o'clock in the morning, my wife said it was either the business or her. One of them had to leave. So I took it out of the house. And also that was the time I met my future business partner. We did a couple of jobs together and ended up deciding to join forces. And that's been 20 years, which is hard.
So you have
hard
one
to
business
imagine.
partner for 20 years?
I've had one business partner for 20 years.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's almost like a marriage.
It is. It,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely is a marriage. And we've had a lot of counseling along the way, just like a marriage.
That's right.
It's been a great journey, and I appreciate it. All that I've learned from Deanna and the work that she does here for the agency, for our clients. I have a kind of joke that I'm a one and done when it comes to entrepreneur. I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I was listening to one of your earlier guests, but we're not at that stage right now. We're actually, it feels like a renaissance right now. We're having a ton of fun getting back to our roots, doing dev work, which is where we originated from, but running an agency, doing sales, doing HR, all the drill. It's hard to make time for some of the things that attracted us to this line of work to begin with. So it's nice to be able to have literally a agent on call that can take the ideas in our head and move things forward. So we've been a HubSpot partner now, Tristan, for probably going on 15 years real soon. I think it was the end of 2012 that we became a partner with HubSpot.
So you've seen HubSpot grow quite a bit as you evolved.
I wish I bought more stock when they IPO'd and offered shares to partners, but that stock's done very well for me. And it's definitely amazing how it's grown. It started out as marketing. They didn't even call it Marketing Hub at that time. It was just HubSpot. It was the only thing they did was marketing, but it was a really great platform and sped up the work we were doing for our clients, provided the reporting mechanism that we needed, and opened our eyes, frankly, to the possibility of how we could go from project-based work to more of a recurring revenue stream. So we've been following that trend, and a lot of other performance marketing agencies that we know are also friends through the HubSpot network. That's definitely been a beneficial collaboration there over the years. We continue to use it. And probably 90% of the websites we build now are on HubSpot, and optimization work that we do is mostly HubSpot. We finally took Pete Caputo's advice to niche probably 10 years later than when he recommended it.
It's always 10 years later.
It is, isn't it? It just takes time for things to sink through the hardness of the skull.
That's right. So that industrial and manufacturing kind of space, that was the niche that you went into, right? But I'm guessing, did you fall into that, or like what prompted that?
Yeah, I'd say that it was, with a lot of things, luck. We ended up with a really good client that we got through a trade, doing some dev work for a marketing agency in Charlotte that had this manufacturing company, and they needed help with the product catalog. So we came in and did the work. But this was like 08, 09, during the Great Recession. And they were going out of business. We didn't know it at the time when we agreed to do the work, but they couldn't pay our invoice. And they said, hey, let's just give you our book of business and call it even.
Oh.
And so we took over 36 accounts, a web server that they were hosting all those accounts at. And in 12 months, we had one client left. That was not fun to go through the other 35 and
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
get basically offload them because they weren't really good accounts to begin with.
Right.
Probably the reason the marketing company was going out of
Like,
business.
Here, take these things.
But that one client, though, it was a launching point for us. It took us a while, though, to figure out that's really a great niche for us to be in. And we've been productizing, not only just specializing in this niche of the industrial, it's really specialty. We started with manufacturing and industrial. It's such a huge space.
It is, yeah.
That we knew we needed to niche further. So where we are finding ourselves is in the specialty manufacturing and distribution. And it's oftentimes in the chemical space because that was the client that we inherited. Mm-hmm. And they've introduced us to other accounts. And we've since become members of a couple of trade associations within there. We actually understand how to pronounce some of the chemical
you know what the acronyms
products
are.
We know some of the acronyms,
Yeah.
and others, but I wouldn't know the first thing to do with those products if they showed up on my door.
Yeah.
But thankfully their teams do, and we know how to help them get that product in front of their customers.
Love it.
And prospects. So yeah, that's been a good niche for us. And the productization is actually around HubSpot and creating a product catalog that is a competitor to much more expensive solutions that require significant year-over-year investment, where this HubSpot is quite affordable in comparison and can do very similar types of functions of creating a Magento or Shopify style
Right.
experience for their, and these are typically smaller customers. Like we're targeting companies from 100 to 1,000 products.
Okay.
If they're more than 1,000, yeah, you probably need more of an enterprise type solution that's going to carry a big budget. If you're less than 100, yeah, you may just want to build it by hand.
Yeah. Too much complexity for what it's
Yep.
for what it's worth. And William, the way you've evolved as an agency, like you mentioned, there's like the HubSpot ecosystem that you've been a part of. You've met a lot of folks through that. And I'm guessing that's what sparked the community and kind of the group that you've created, or how did all that come about?
Yeah, so that came about organically, as many things do. So it was actually through the Marketing AI Institute that was set up by Paul Rotzer, who was HubSpot's first agency partner back, I don't know how far back, 2007, 8, somewhere in there. And I knew Paul through HubSpot and through the partner program there, seen him speak several times, read his book, two of his books. And he started Marketing AI Institute in 17 or 18, started doing conferences. So I was at one of his conferences. And of course, being that he knows a lot of people or a lot of agencies through HubSpot, there were a lot of HubSpot agency partners in the early days of the Marketing AI conference that is held up in Cleveland every year. So I was at one of those in 23, and several of us who are agency partners, said, hey, let's get together and debrief on a quick call in a couple of weeks. All the material that we were taking in, let that sink in, and then, what are we going to do with this? So we connected up, and it was, I think, 4 of us at the time, and had a great conversation. It was good to just debrief and remember some of those sessions, because what it's like at a conference. You got so much information coming at you, and you don't really have a chance to get it all written down. But if somebody brings in a point, it just can spark a memory and hey, I needed to move forward on something that I didn't explore at the time and has gotten knocked off my priority list due to other more pressing issues, not necessarily more important issues, as you understand. So we did that, and we're like, at the end of the call, hey, this was good. Y'all want to do it again? So we did. And in between those first 2 calls, I was connecting with other people who I hadn't known who were at the conference. And I started asking if they would want to join a monthly conversation. And so that's how it grew. And from there was word of mouth of, hey, you know anybody, other agencies who are trying to figure this stuff out? As that was the place that we were in at the time, was that there's a lot of new knowledge, and there were new technology and new tools, but there wasn't a clear roadmap on how to implement this for companies or agencies, even individuals. This was before all of the Paul's AI Academy that he released and all the AI training that's available now. So having that outlet to talk about what we're working, some of the things that people are doing. I remember in the early days, we had one woman, Esma, from a very large 500-person agency coming on the call because she was hired by the agency to run their AI rollout. The opportunity to spend more time really thinking about how to adopt AI within their agency, that bigger agency. So she was teaching us about some of the policies they were putting into place and the governance that they were thinking about and putting into place. We were sharing with each other some of the new tools that we were testing out and how we were bringing teams on board. It was in that period that, I think it was during that period, at the beginning of the group, we actually had to let go of an entire department within my company that was 12 people. It took us down to, and then a contractor as well, so 4 of the 12, because of just some misalignment issues. I'll leave it at that, with where we needed to move as a company and just not really getting on board on.
So William, at that time it was 12 people. And how large was the organization overall?
We were 12 people, and it was 4 of the 12 that we were trying to move into more of an AI forward. At the time, we didn't have that language, but we were trying to take a more AI forward stance. As an agency, we had invested a significant amount of money into an AI product that we learned about at Macon. And that team went through the whole vetting process, said yes to it, and then proceeded not to use it and digging their heels around adopting the tool. So we were like, this is clearly not working. There was other stuff as well. It wasn't just, I'm not going to use the tool. We're no longer aligned. And so we had to go through that process of, hey, there's going to be people who are not going to adopt these tools. And how do we deal with that? And how do we identify that? The other thing we had to learn, this was one of our sessions back in the early days, how do you go through and choose the right tool? And Paul and Mike addressed this in their book. Unfortunately, the book came out a year too late for me. I made that mistake of pay for the entire year rather than going month to month, which is one of their first points. But one of the things the book didn't cover that we covered in those days is, all right, so you've had it for 30, 60, 90 days. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of these tools? As a group, we were just sharing, hey, these are some of the things that we're looking for. That stuff's not necessarily groundbreaking. There's plenty of frameworks and rubrics you can put into place to do evaluations, to establish your hypotheses or what you're expecting from this. But it's just good to have other people who are going through the same situation who can view their perspectives, their points of view, commiserate with you when you have to go through the hard times.
And did you find that the group, the folks that you met, had this group going every month? Did you find that a lot of the agencies were experiencing the same thing? I can imagine at varying degrees, right? People are wondering if they have the right people in place to adopt this type of technology. It's so disruptive. Were you hearing similar statements from others, or what was the sentiment there?
So there's a few of us that I'd say are moving faster than others, and there's concerns about how much information do you share with the tools that we would get into. The AI is this bumpy rollout, and Paul has a saying for this. I forget what it is at the moment, but AI is not going to roll out smoothly. There are going to be certain people who will be willing to take more risks with it, and they're going to get more benefit out of it by jumping in early. And then there's another group that, for whatever reason, they're not interested in it. I was talking to a young man yesterday who's setting up a company to offer AI implementation services for businesses. He's in his early 20s. It was fun to reminisce what it was like in my early 20s because it was all about the web at that time and getting online and helping businesses figure out how to adopt to the web. How they're doing artificial intelligence. And in a talk I gave this week, one of my points was like, who would have ever thought 20 years ago we would be having a conversation with our computers that was an intelligent conversation, that they could be doing so much. The dream has been there, but the actuality has been really bumpy. It's an amazing space to be in, but his friend, he was telling me the story of a friend of his who's in computer science. He's studying how to write code, who's anti-AI.
I believe it,
I believe it too. It's just, part of me finds it really hard to believe at the same time when you were obviously attracted to technology and to figuring out how to get silicon to do your bidding for you, and you're not going to adopt a tool that can help you do what you want to do faster and better. Whenever I give a talk right now, Tristan, I'm sure anybody talking about AI right now sees the same thing. It's just such a wide berth of folks in the room, from the early adopters who've probably gone further than I have to those who they're actively piloting and starting to put systems in place to be able to scale, which is where we are as an agency right now, to those that they're at the understanding phase. I saw a lot of that with the group, and I think as the group has grown, I've heard people say that it's a good place to come to just get ideas, to hear how other agencies are embracing and adopting these tools, because there's so many places you could adopt AI into your agency. The question that actually Paul posed, I think, just this week and talked about on his podcast that he turned into Vibe Sessions, which is where to start. That was my approach last year with the group, is thinking about, so like the first year we were running, it was really about, let's understand the environment we're in. This playing field has changed. Last year was more about, okay, we need to start doing some things. We need to start building pilots. This year is really around the agency operating system, which is what attracted me to the material you were putting out on LinkedIn, and why I was so eager to have you come and talk to the group is because you're thinking about it operationally. And that's where we are as well along this journey. The people that I invite and the conversations we end up having typically is where I am is on my own journey and my own path of understanding the technology and how to apply it internally within the agency. So that's the theme that I'm on right now, is that agency operating system and how to build something that can work alongside our team because we went from 12 to now 4 full-time employees. We don't have that many more contractors working for us, but we're doing the same amount of revenue as we were with 12. It's
Yeah.
just we've gotten smarter about how we do the work and where we put our efforts into.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And the one thing I think is a pattern that I see, and William, went to an M&A, agency M&A conference last week. And before we had a 2-day conference on mergers and acquisitions, there was a session about AI and adoption within agencies, because as you can imagine, that drives agency cash flows moving forward. And it's like the biggest variable we've ever seen. Like 10 years ago, you could predict with some level of certainty, or you knew the business model, right? 5 years ahead.
Yeah.
But now it's the economics could be completely different for an agency if you implement the right things, and it makes it harder. There's more variability there.
Yep.
And the one thing I want to ask you about, because we were talking about if you are acquiring an agency, there's 2 opportunities. You could acquire an agency that does not have a lot of these operating systems in place, right? They're not even heading in this direction, and the owner knows that's going to be a vulnerability soon. And that's an opportunity. Then the other side of the coin is there might be a firm that is forward thinking in that way, and they can become part of that culture, right? And grow that way. But the patterns that I'm seeing is from an adoption standpoint, and the agencies that are moving as fast as possible definitely have that technical founder or that leader that's able to steer. And I thought it was interesting because that's your background, right? You're a technical marketer. You introduce yourself that way. And I think those agency founders and leaders do have a leg up right now. But that's my point of view. How do you feel about that? Like seeing some of the other folks that you talk with quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that for the ability to adopt the AI, the technical founder does have the advantage on being able to survey what's available and hopefully make better decisions on which direction to go with the technology. Not always right decisions.
Right.
Like when I purchased that software several years ago, and I basically, in hindsight, Tristan, it's not the team, it's you. You got to look in the mirror. While there were things they were doing that ultimately led to them being dismissed, the root cause is me and my business partner and how we managed that group. And ultimately, I brought the software in. They probably just said, hey, the boss says to use it, so we're going to say yes to it, but we're really not interested in doing it, which didn't come out until later. But as far as the founder piece goes, I think that what I've seen successful with companies, like there's a agency here in town that I have a lot of respect for, and they are brilliant brand strategists. I don't know how much background either of the partners has in server-side development, in pulling out Python and writing code that way. But they've hired in team members. So if you're of the right size, then you can hire in that expertise. And you, as the founder, if you got the vision, then you can hire the team to get you to where you want to be. It's hard, though. In the agency world, there's not many agencies who can afford to hire a chief AI strategist, or not even a strategist, just somebody to do the work, frankly. It's
Well, that's what I see too. It's like you can, even if you do have, you're at the critical mass where you can build an internal team. I think that's still a challenge because the folks that, it's an interesting dynamic where you're not really incentivized necessarily to grow or decrease costs, or that role typically is, this is a salary and you're going to develop or you're going to produce X, Y, and Z. And I feel like that's where the technical founder has an advantage, because not only do they have that foundation and they have that vision from a technical perspective, but they're also incentivized by either growing their agency or decreasing costs or whatever.
That's an interesting point. And I'd say maybe we should check back in 12 to 24 months and see if that is making a difference. Deanna and I are working on a couple of projects right now to our SEO service and now our AEO service, GEO, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. All
but
the above.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Alphabet soup. And she's been tackling the SEO side. I've been tackling the AEO side. And we've got like our V1s built and operational, but it's a lot of operator, basically the human. It's not a human in the loop. It's like the human pushing the rock up the hill sometimes is what it feels like. You've done that yourself. And we're working on moving that project into the cloud. And so it'll be interesting to see, and this is a question in the back of my head of, will this investment that we are making into the how our business runs really allow us to scale and hit a pace of growth that we've not been able to get to. We've been, without giving away exactly revenue numbers, but anybody who's been in business long enough kind of has a sense of where you are with 4 full-time employees and contractors. We've been north of the $1 million mark with this agency for, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years, somewhere in there, whatever. But we've not been able to get over that, $2 million mark. We're kind of caught in those places. And I think this is a pretty standard process of growth as you plateau, and then you got to figure out, all right, what is it going to be that's going to get me up that next hill? So we're trying to figure out what's the thing that is going to be the hill climb here for us that'll shift us into the next gear. That'll be interesting to find out if we're making the right bet on the right horse here.
Yeah, and that said, I think you were sending the roundup or the invite of one of the events, and the question was, is this the golden age for agencies? I think it was like in the subject or something.
Yep.
I'll ask you that. From your perspective, do you think it is? You've been around for a while. Is it the golden age?
I go back and forth on that. I'd say that in the first quarter, earlier in the year, I was more negative and more concerned, really, than I was optimistic. And what we can do with this technology is just blows your mind. And I keep myself up later at night than I should.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm paying the price for that. But it's reminiscent of the early days of the internet and people doing the same thing then, staying up all night. Holy cow, this is such a new space that we've entered into, and there's an excitement around it. There's also the fear that comes with what are we unleashing? And back in the 90s when the internet was so new, we didn't have the social media and some of the underbelly of this beast that has been released. We didn't have some of the benefits to it as well. So I was more concerned, to get back to you to answer your question, I was more concerned earlier in this year about the future of agencies than I am now. And with others like Franz Mersma from Chief Martech, I believe is his company out of Amsterdam, he was the one who coined that phrase. In fact, I think he did it several years ago as I was reading up and learning more about him, but he was talking on an interview in December, and that came up. And his belief is that the capabilities that these tools are giving to agencies is going to open up a ton of opportunity because agencies are looking out ahead. We're 2 or 3 steps oftentimes ahead. And that's the point I think you were making of, you can hire somebody who does AI internally for your agency, but they're doing their job and they're going to go home and they're not going to think about your agency once they go home. An owner, for better and worse, we don't stop thinking about it. So there's a potential benefit there. Again, it's going to be TBD as to, is this actually going to pan out, or are we, what is that, tilting at windmills?
And when you think about, if you have that vision as an agency owner and you're making headway in a lot of areas, like we've talked about, how, on the flip side though, because you talked about your challenges with adoption, right? You have a new tool, for example, and that didn't get adopted like you had hoped. We've faced that in a lot of places. And we found very similar to you, some of the folks we've had internally just aren't able to adapt quick enough. And it's like they're just not the right person for an agency culture like
Yes.
that. And some of that didn't come to light until recently, within the last year or two, where I feel like 5 years ago, things didn't change at the pace that they are, and you didn't have to adapt that quickly. But how do you view adoption now? Your team, you've streamlined things, now you're even more committed than ever. How do you think about adoption within the company?
That's an interesting question, Tristan. I hadn't really thought about that one. Being a smaller agency, we have more opportunity to connect with the team. It's such a easier business to run, frankly, than it was before. We followed Paul's suggestion back last fall when all the CEO memos were going out. He is typical. It was like, hey, there's a theme here, and he can figure out what it is and then shine a light on it and said, hey, here's a format, take this and share this to the team. And we did that last fall. And thing that came from that CEO memo is just basically it's, hey, here's where we stand on AI. It's not like trying to say we're favoring AI over people. In fact, he makes a point to not use AI first and rather use AI forward. And we've leaned into that same languaging as well because people are first. AI is to serve people. Where things go in the future, if you want to get into the philosophical, ethical debate, probably a different podcast for that. But for right now, it's a tool and people are first, AI second. So we put that out. And the best thing that came back from that was no comment, basically. To them, they were already aligned with the way that we think in the future that we are creating for the team. Because we're such a small team, basically everybody's on our AI council. And we typically meet once a month. Sometimes we skip it like we did this week because we didn't have a whole lot on the agenda to handle. And there's other issues that were more pressing for us as a company. We also do an AI lunch and learn once a month. So it feels like the team is really aligned right now around the direction we're going. Like any agency, we struggle with how we get all the work done in the day.
Yeah, there's the work, and then you got to have the forward thinking component.
Yeah.
It's always a balance, right?
Yep.
For selfish reasons, tell me a little bit about the AI council that you have. I know it's a small team, but like, what's the difference between that and then the lunch and learns where you're kind of showing some of the experiments and things that you're doing?
Yeah, so the council is intended to lay out how the agency is using these tools, any of the priorities that we are setting for AI adoption within the company, governance we're putting around it, policies that we're putting into place, training that we want. One of our recent council meetings, I basically said to the team, this was after Greg Boone, who was another one of my speakers this year, came and spoke to us at his agency, which is, I think he's about 40 people at the agency. They've set a timeline for everybody at the agency to have at least one certification. And so that's something that I brought into the council to discuss. And everybody now has agreed to, yeah, we'll go forward and get one certification. So it didn't come as a mandate from me. It came as, hey, here's something that's interesting. Let's talk about this and whether we should do this as well. What's the benefits to doing that? And so the team has gone out and are now looking around for training and a certification, which will push us forward as an agency.
And then one area I would love to get your take on is it's always challenging as an owner, founder, leader to balance new products and services, new implementations versus, like you said, doing the work. Because the work never goes away. You have clients, you have to service them with your existing processes, but then also you need to improve things. And it's always a balance. And I'm just wondering, like, how are you balancing those two things?
Well, like I said, I've been staying up a little bit too late at night these past several months right now. I think that staying in communication with your clients and being clear on we're not just going through the motions and doing a paint by numbers approach. to how we deliver services, staying focused on the goals and the outcome that we're trying to create for them, and also bringing them along on the journey of what we're trying to do and sharing with them our thinking. It's been interesting how this peer group has evolved into other areas that I never would have imagined. But if I look back, the recommendations, the suggestions have been there. I just didn't really action them because being more of the technician, I lean more into the D and the C on a disc profile than I do on the I. In fact, my I was pretty much as low as it could possibly be. So
I'm high D all the way, pretty much. William, but
yeah, there's something about that. But I just didn't prioritize people, Tristan, is what it came down to back when I was younger. And that prioritization has definitely been something that I've come to appreciate a lot more. First with my business partner and then with the rest of my team and what they are doing and taking over. But now with this group, a year ago, decided to put together a group of 4 of our customers, and we meet once a quarter. And it started out as a suggestion from one of my clients. And so I convened the group and I'm acting as a moderator, but it's not me driving, it's their conversation that is driving that group. I'm getting probably as much out of it as they're getting out of it from the cross-pollination and just the confirmation that they hear, and also a different perspective that they're hearing from each other. So next month we're getting together again. We've been in the process of doing this reverse engineering from the sale down to how we go to market. And we got through half of that process on our last call. And so we're going to focus on the go-to-market motion, which is really good timing for any HubSpot partner. HubSpot did a go-to-market engineering course with Christopher Nault from, I think it's Growth is the name of his agency.
okay.
Yeah, smart guy. If you're a HubSpot partner, definitely a series worth looking up. I think it was a 5-course series. They're addressing AI and addressing loop marketing and just some of the newer that I think will be very applicable. But this idea of go-to-market engineering is our next conversation because, how you go to market, man, it just continues to diversify, and AI has just added so many new surfaces to think about.
Yeah. And I'll close up with this question, William, because I think I'm interested to get your take on it. With all the capabilities that AI offers, expanding what we can do, how quickly we can do it, what do you think on the other side of that? What limitations has it introduced more so?
The limitations. Wow, that's an interesting way to think about it. I'm not even sure how to start on that. Let me take a shot at it. So the thing that I see myself struggling with the most right now when it comes to AI is the volume of information it can bring back. And then human judgment has to come in and sift through that to figure out what's good, what's not good. I think that's the limitation that is creating for me right now is one of, it might have been faster to actually just write the email than to go back and forth with AI on how to craft that email. I've always been challenged because I enjoy new challenges and new ideas. I'm not a really great operator. I've seen really strong ops people, and they can find these patterns and get work structured in a way that to me is incredible. I'm struggling with that piece right now of, all right, how do I operationalize things so I'm not re-solving the problem every time I come back to it? I don't know, that's probably more of a limitation of my thinking right now than it is a limitation of the tools themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's one of the things I see is, so for some of the clients and organizations we work with, I think AI puts a spotlight on some of the, I guess I would say, the opportunities that exist within your company. If you don't have structured data and you can't break down your work or your process in modules or components, it's like AI can almost make it worse
Yeah.
than it is with if you have a heavily human in the loop process. So that's one of the things. I mean, like when I think about that question, that's what it's funny. Like you answered it in a very similar way. Like that is what we see all day. It's like some of the clients we have aren't even able to take advantage of some of the tools. They need to put together the foundation first and start there. And I think AI, it's such a awakening for some people. And I think that's where some organizations are going to struggle because they're just not going to be able to put the work in to figure out that, like the data that you're talking about, the governance component. Like it's great to have the foundation, but can we keep data clean and standardized along the way? Because it's nice to have a project where you clean up data, but then you got to commit to it moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But the tools are the way forward. And every one of these things that could look like an obstacle, it's what's continuing to improve us. And our businesses on the other side will be stronger and better. I remember going through the Great Recession. Yeah, the struggles as a company we had to go through, one of which was learning what it meant to sell because we were very opportunistic and were relied on word of mouth. And we were good at what we did. And so people would refer us and we were growing as a result of that. But it was very organic growth and it was the things that take, if I could have done it over again, Tristan, the things I would do differently this time. But you got to take the lessons where they come. And when you're not in control of your sales motion, then you're just going to take whoever comes in and you solve problems in all these different types of industries, and there's no kind of a problem that you keep solving over and over again and get better and better at, which is what we've finally figured out. But I think that the AI is exposing, similar to what you're saying, is exposing for us the places that we were so reliant on the knowledge in our team members' heads that it exposed us when that expert walked out the door and took our entire process and left some documentation behind. Our head of search marketing decided to take another opportunity at the end of the year. And at that point, Deanna said, I'm just going to do a mind meld with Matt and get all the information from him. And we're going to turn this into an AI driven system. And so that process is, we went through version 1, our proof of concept and piloting, and now we're moving it into the cloud so that we can operationalize that. It's working for us right now. But going through that was interesting because it exposed to us how little structure we had around that component of our business.
Yeah. And you wouldn't have even seen that unless someone left and it's like, oh, we got to document it. We got to get our arms around it. And
and we had 3. We came to find out because over the years, as we hired different people to run SEO, we were relying on their expertise, not on our system. And it worked. It was fine. They were doing good work, mostly. With AI, the pictures changed though with AI on the scene, and so I think it'll be a challenge to companies that have been performance marketing companies on how do you come about and tell the story to clients on what's changing and what needs to stay the same and why to continue to even invest in SEO when there's less traffic, fewer clicks, even though there's more impressions. It's still worth investing there.
Well, we have a lot in front of us, I think, William. I appreciate you sharing a lot. I had a lot of selfish questions for you. I wanted to figure out kind of like your take on some things. And I think your group is very valuable too. I've gotten a lot from it. I met a lot of folks a couple months ago now and been watching you share some of that information. Maybe tell us a little bit about that group and then also where people can find you in Knowmad.
Okay. So it's AI for agencies, nothing creative. I'm not a brand guy. I'm a technical marketer, as I mentioned. We meet once a month, first Fridays at 2:00 Eastern time. And anybody who is in a leadership position at an agency is welcome to come. You don't have to be an agency owner. And the meetings are recorded. If you're not able to join, then I will share a recording afterwards. I do keep out other recorders. So just FYI, you can't just send your recorder to the meeting. Then if you want to connect with me, the best place is going to be on LinkedIn. William, I think is William McKee on LinkedIn. William L. McKee, Knowmad, Knowmad.
Very cool. William, thanks again. I appreciate it. Always good to catch up with you and follow what you're doing. I'm sure we'll connect here again, swap some more notes, and also pain that we're going through. But that's what it's all about. So I appreciate you. Appreciate you joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tristan.
Thanks for listening to Agency in Motion. For more episodes, insights, and our latest thinking on agency growth and acquisitions, visit aragon-holdings.com and subscribe to the newsletter. We'll see you next time.